The sky split open like a rotten fruit, bleeding violet fire as the Zorati dreadnoughts descended. Admiral Vailtach of the 3rd Cleansing Fleet watched from the bridge of the ascendant dawn. His chitinous fingers steepled. The planet beneath them, Earth its primates called it, was a mottled blue-green stain against the void. Pathetic. Broadcast the surrender demand. Vailtach ordered, mandibles clicking in amusement. Frequency-wide. Let them hear their doom in every dialect. His communications officer, a spindly Zur named Crix, hesitated. Preliminary scans suggest they lack even rudimentary plasma shielding. Their militaries still use projectile weapons. The disgust in his voice was palpable. Vailtach exhaled through his tracheal vents. This would be easier than the Zenthian pacification. At least those worms had the decency to collapse when their hive mind was EMP burned. Standard doctrine. Disable their power grids, drop the shock troops in their population centers. They'll beg for the collar before sunrise. A chorus of chitters echoed across the bridge. The Zorati Dominion had perfected this dance across 100 worlds. Shatter the enemy's infrastructure, let them see the futility of resistance, and they would kneel. Every species did. Survival instincts demanded it. New York City died at 3:17 a.m. One moment, the skyline glittered. The next, every light from Brooklyn to the Bronx winked out as the EMP wave struck. Cars slewed into guardrails. Subway trains ground to a halt in tunnels thick with screams. Then the drop pods came, hissing, egg-shaped horrors cratering into Times Square, disgorging Zorati shock troopers in glossy black carapace armor. Private Danny Ruiz saw them first. He'd been on leave, stumbling out of a bar near 42nd Street when the blackout hit. Now he crouched behind an overturned taxi, his service pistol slick in his grip. His phone was dead. The street was chaos. People running, tripod-legged alien bastards gunning them down with weapons that made no sound. Just a flicker of light and then a body collapsing with a smoldering hole in their chest. We are the Zorati Dominion. Boomed a voice from the sky, thick with synthetic harmonics. Lay down your arms. You will be collared. Resistance is death. Danny's breath came in ragged gasps. He'd done 2 tours in Afghanistan. He knew the sound of bullshit ultimatums. A kid, couldn't have been older than 14, darted past him, clutching a bleeding arm. A Zorati trooper pivoted, raising its weapon. Danny didn't think. 3 shots cracked the air. The first 2 sparked off the trooper's armor. The third punched through its bulbous left eye. It staggered, ichor sprang, and collapsed. Silence. Then a chorus of shrieks, not human. The other Zorati screeched, their limbs jerking in what Danny realized, with vicious delight, was panic. They weren't used to being hit back. A hand grabbed his shoulder. The kid from before, face streaked with soot. They're coming for you, he whispered. Danny ejected his spent magazine. Yeah? Let them. The Ascendant Dawn-S bridge was silent. Vailtach stared at the holographic feed from Times Square, where the last of Shock Cohort 9 had just been torn apart by a mob of unarmed humans. One trooper's carcass was being paraded on a pike made of rebar. Impossible, Crix whispered. The neural scans, their fear response is spiking, but they're not retreating. They're adapting, Vailtach finished, stomachs churning. New footage flashed on screen. A human male missing half his face, still crawling toward a downed trooper to strangle it with bare hands. A female using a broken bottle to saw through a Zorati throat. A child hurling a Molotov cocktail. Dispatch the heavy drones, Vailtach snarled. Burn the sector. Crix hesitated. Admiral, their physiology. Our bioscanners can't find a pain threshold. Their adrenaline and cortisol levels are... Do it. As the drones streaked toward Manhattan, Vailtach watched a single human stare into the feed. A bloodied soldier with a pistol and no armor. The man grinned, teeth red, and raised his middle finger. The transmission cut. Somewhere below, the city burned, and the humans kept fighting. The stench of scorched flesh and melted steel clung to the ruins of Manhattan like a funeral shroud. From the smoldering carcass of a downed Zorati drone, Sergeant Marcus Rook Grayson dragged himself free, his tactical vest charred, the skin beneath blistering. His earpiece spat static. No command, no squad, just the distant screams of a city that refused to die quietly. Across the street, a Zorati patrol advanced, their carapace armor glistening under the sickly orange glow of burning buildings. They moved methodically, executing the wounded, pausing only to study the corpses with tilted heads, as if waiting for them to get back up. Rook's fingers closed around a jagged piece of rebar. Then the alleyway exploded. A concussive blast sent the Zorati reeling as a figure in scorched sweat gear lunged from the smoke, combat knife flashing. The first alien went down with steel buried in its throat. The second spun, weapon rising, only for Rook to cave in its skull with the rebar. The human attacker straightened, wiping gore from her face. "You always this slow, soldier?" Rook recognized her, Lieutenant Elena Vasquez, NYPD Emergency Services. Last he'd heard, her unit had been wiped out in the initial drop. "Had to make sure you didn't hog all the fun," he rasped. Vasquez tossed him a scavenged pulse pistol. "They're rounding people up at Grand Central, shipping them somewhere." Rook checked the weapons charge. Half a clip. Enough for a few shots, or one really pissed-off message. "Then let's RSVP." Aboard the Ascendant Dawn, Vailtage stared at the casualty reports, his primary heart pounding in a rhythm that bordered on panic. *70% of shock cohort 9 eliminated. Crix reported, voice trembling. "The humans, they're using our own weapons against us." "There. *animals*. Vailtage hissed. "But animals fled. Animals surrendered. These creatures learned." A new alert flashed. A priority transmission from the surface. A live feed from Research Pod Sigma, where the Dominion's chief xenobiologist, Dr. Y.L. Fix, stood in a sterile chamber. Before him, strapped to an interrogation slab, was a human. Female. Mid-30s. Left leg severed at the knee, the wound crudely cauterized. "Subject demonstrates abnormal pain tolerance," Y.L. Fix announced, prodding the cauterized stump with a neural probe. The human's jaw clenched, but she didn't scream. Adrenaline and endorphin levels suggest a biochemical feedback loop. They can override shutdown reflexes starred up. The human lifted her head. Blood crusted her lips, but her voice was steady. "You gonna talk all day? Or do I get a turn with that thing?" While Fix ignored her, adjusting his scanner. "Most critical, their neural activity spikes under stress. Not degradation, *adaptation star. They evolve in combat." Vailtage's claws dug into the armrest of his command throne. "Then break her." While Fix activated the pain amplifier. The human's body arched against the restraints, tendons standing out like cables. The scanner screamed as her brain activity erupted into a storm of chaotic signals. Yet her pupils remained fixed, unblinking, locked onto Weil Fix's face. After 37 seconds, he terminated the stimulus. She sagged, sweat-drenched, breath ragged. Then she laughed. "That's it?" She wheezed. "I've had worse period cramps." While Fix recoiled. This wasn't bravado. Her vitals confirmed she genuinely perceived the pain but chose to disregard it. "Fascinating," he murmured. Then, louder, "Administer the truth serum." A hypospray hissed against her neck. The human's eyelids fluttered, but her gaze remained sharp. "Name and rank," Weil Fix demanded. "Captain Leah Carter," she slurred, the drugs tugging at her tongue. "United States Marine Corps. Service number 845. Why do you resist?" Weil Fix interrupted. "You cannot win. Your species will be collared. Why not surrender?" Carter's lips peeled back in a grin. "Because fuck you." Weil Fix stiffened. "That is not an answer. It's the only answer." Her voice cleared, the drugs already metabolizing. "You think we're like the others, things you can scare into kneeling. But we invented fear. We bred it. You want us to break." She spat blood onto the floor. You'll have to erase us. The scanner beside her flatlined for a single, terrifying second, then erupted into a new pattern, while Fix's frills flared in alarm. Her brain. It's restructuring, he whispered. She's. Carter's hand snapped free of the restraint. The explosion at Grand Central wasn't a weapon. It was a distraction. As the Zorati perimeter scrambled toward the blast, Rook and Vasquez struck from the shadows. Pulse fire lit the ruins, but the aliens were slow, too reliant on tech, too unprepared for a knife in the dark. Rook put a round through a trooper's skull, then grabbed Vasquez's arm. Where's the evac? She pointed upward. A Zorati transport, its ramp lowered, guards absent. They sprinted. Inside, the hold was packed with humans. Civilians, hands bound, collars glowing around their necks. A Zorati overseer turned, mandibles flaring in alarm. Vasquez shot it twice in the chest. The captive stared, wide-eyed, as Rook pried open the control panel. Anyone here know how to fly this thing? The teenager raised a shaking hand. I play flight simulator? Rook tossed him a pistol. Close enough. As the engines whined to life, the comms crackled. A voice, raw with static. Asterisk all units. Research pod Sigma compromised. Subject escaped. Asterisk. Then the transmission died. Vasquez met Rook's eyes. You thinking what I'm thinking? He racked the pulse rifle's charging bolt. We're not leaving her behind. The transport lifted into the smoke-choked sky. Below, the streets burned. And somewhere in the ruins, Captain Leah Carter was still fighting. The stolen Zorati transport shuddered as it pierced the cloud cover. Its hull groaning under stress it was never designed to endure. Rook gripped the pilot's seat as the teenager. Asterisk Jason, his name was Jason Asterisk, wrestled with controls meant for limbs with too many joints. Alarms blared, and the city below shrank into a scarred mosaic of fire and rubble. Vasquez braced herself against the bulkhead, pulse rifle hot from overuse. We've got company. Through the rear cam feed, 3 Zorati interceptors streaked after them, their sleek forms cutting through the smoke like blades. Rook exhaled. Kid, any chance you learned evasive maneuvers in that flight sim? Jason's knuckles whitened on the yoke. I mostly crashed. Perfect. Rook slapped the console. Do that. The transport lurched into a nosedive. Aboard the Ascendant Dawn, VailTH watched the chaos unfold through a dozen flickering feeds. Research Pod Sigma's last transmission looped in the corner of his vision. Captain Carter's face, bloodied and grinning, as she vanished into the ruins with a stolen plasma cutter. Recall all surface units, he ordered, his voice hollow. Orbital bombardment authorized. Reduce the eastern continent to glass. Crix hesitated. The cleansing protocol requires. Asterisk they are not a species. Asterisk VailTH's claws splintered the armrest. They are a plague. A new alert flashed, an internal breach. Hangar Bay 4. The feed showed a dozen humans, armed with scavenged weapons and fury, pouring from a crippled transport. And leading them, Carter. Her missing leg had been replaced with a Zorati drone strut, welded crudely to her thigh. She moved like a storm-given flesh. VailTH's blood ran cold. Rook hit the deck as plasma fire scorched the hangar ceiling. Beside him, Vasquez picked off a shrieking Zorati technician with surgical precision. Where's Carter? Rook yelled over the din. A pulse rifle answered 3 shots, synchronized with the stuttering lights. A Zorati guard collapsed, throat vaporized. Carter stepped over the corpse, her makeshift leg whining with each step. Miss me? Rook grinned. You're late. She tossed him a plasma grenade. Made a detour. The hangar doors groaned. Reinforcements. Too many. Carter didn't flinch. Jason, that subroutine ready? The kid crouched behind a console, fingers flying over alien glyphs. Almost. Got it. The hangar's gravity generators shrieked. And failed. Zorati troops flailed as they floated upward, limbs scrambling for purchase in sudden zero-G. Humans didn't hesitate. They pushed off, knives and guns and bare hands becoming weapons in the chaos. Rook kicked toward a guard, driving his combat blade into its thorax. They really don't like it when the rules change. Carter grabbed a drifting pulse rifle, spun, and blew apart a cluster of flailing aliens. Good. Veiltage's command throne shuddered as explosions rocked the ship. The Ascendant Dawn was bleeding, humans in the vents, in the ducts, everywhere. Crix gasped as a console exploded. They've breached engineering. There. The door exploded. Carter stepped through, her plasma cutter humming. Behind her, Rook and Vasquez fanned out, weapons raised. Veiltage rose, mandibles spread in defiance. You cannot win. Even if you take this ship, the Dominion will send another fleet. And another. You will die. Carter limped forward, her drone leg clicking against the deck. Yeah, but not today. She raised the cutter. The last thing Veiltage saw was white fire. Earth's skies burned for 3 more days. Then the Zorati fleet broke. Some ships fled. Others self-destructed rather than be boarded. The Ascendant Dawn, its command nexus reduced to slag, tumbled into the Atlantic in a funeral pyre of molten metal. On a beach littered with wreckage, Rook watched the last alien cruiser vanish into the stars. Think they'll be back? Jason asked, cradling a burned arm. Vasquez lit a cigarette with a flick of her Zippo. Hope so. Carter said nothing. She stared at the horizon, where the smoke parted just enough to reveal the first pale hint of dawn. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning a new truth. Do not wake the monsters. The fires had burned themselves out, leaving behind a world scoured raw. The air still tasted of ash and ionized metal, but the guns had fallen silent. For now, Rook stood on the roof of what had once been a parking garage, now a makeshift command post, watching the first UN relief helicopters carve through the hazy dawn. His ribs ached where a Zorati pulse round had grazed him, the wound wrapped in a blood-stained bandage. Behind him, Vasquez dismantled a scavenged alien rifle with practiced ease, her fingers blackened with gunpowder and coolant fluid. You think they actually left? She asked, not looking up. Rook spat into the dust. Doubt it. A shadow fell across them, Carter, her drone leg whining with each step. She carried a Zorati data slate in one hand, its screen cracked but still glowing faintly. They left us a present. The slate flickered to life, displaying a star map. A single system pulsed red, its coordinates screaming danger in any language. Jason, his arm now properly splinted, squinted at the display. That's not Earth. No, Carter said. It's theirs. Silence settled over them, thick and heavy. The implications were clear, this wasn't over. The Zorati had retreated, not surrendered. And they would be back. Vasquez was the first to break the quiet. She reassembled the rifle with a sharp click. So, we going to wait for them? Rook grinned. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Fuck no. Carter tossed the slate onto a nearby crate. It landed with a thud, the star map still glowing. Then we'd better get to work. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang, salvaged from the rubble, its chime uneven but defiant. The aliens had made one fatal mistake. They'd shown humanity where they lived. The captured Zorati shuttle screamed through the upper atmosphere, its alien alloys glowing cherry red from re-entry friction. Inside the cramped cockpit, Carter wrestled with controls that had never been meant for human hands, her jaw clenched tight against the turbulence. The drone leg she'd welded to her stump whined in protest with every adjustment, its servos struggling to compensate. Still think this was a good idea? Rook shouted over the roar of superheated air, his harness digging into his shoulders as the shuttle bucked violently. Carter didn't answer. Her eyes remained fixed on the heads-up display where the Zorati homeworld grew larger by the second, a sickly green marble swathed in orbital defense platforms. The stolen coordinates had led them here, to the heart of the Dominion. Behind them, Vasquez methodically checked the pulse rifle she'd modified with human ammunition feeds. Remember, she said, slamming a power cell home with practiced ease, we're not here to negotiate. The shuttle's proximity alarms blared as the first defense grid locked on. Carter's fingers danced across the alien console, inputting the override codes they'd ripped from the Ascendant Dawn's dying systems. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the targeting lasers winked out. Jason, strapped into the co-pilot's seat with his injured arm cradled close, let out a shaky breath. They bought it. Carter's smile was all teeth. Now comes the hard part. The shuttle touched down in a screaming whirl of reverse thrusters, its landing struts crushing the delicate spires of a Dominion docking platform. Before the engines had even whined to silence, the hatch blew outward in a concussive blast of shaped charges. Rook hit the smoke-choked ramp first, his scavenged plasma rifle sweeping across a scene of chaos. Zorati technicians scrambled for cover, their multi-jointed limbs flailing in panic. None of them had ever imagined an enemy would reach this far. None had prepared for humans. "Move!" Carter barked, limping forward with her weapon raised. The docking bay's emergency lights painted her face in streaks of crimson, turning her into something out of a nightmare. They moved like a surgical strike team, Vasquez covering their six with precise bursts of fire, Rook clearing their path with controlled aggression, Jason hacking every terminal they passed to sow digital chaos. The few Zorati guards who tried to stop them died screaming, their carapace armor no match for human fury. But it was Carter who led them deeper into the complex, her stolen knowledge of Zorati schematics guiding them toward the central nexus, toward the heart of the Dominion's power. The high ascendancy chamber stank of ozone and fear. Veltage's successor, Archon Zarek, rose from her command throne as the blast doors exploded inward. Her compound eyes reflected the four humans standing in the wreckage, bloodied, battered, and utterly unstoppable. "You are fools," Zarek hissed, her mandibles quivering with rage. "This world is protected by..." "By what?" Carter interrupted, stepping forward. Her drone leg clicked against the polished floor. "Your fleet's in tatters. Your defenses are compromised. And your people." She gestured to the viewport where distant explosions bloomed across the skyline. "They're learning what it means to be afraid." Rook leveled his rifle at Zarek's head. "We're here to deliver a message." Jason tapped at his stolen datapad. Across the planet, every comm channel, every broadcast screen, every Dominion device suddenly flared to life, showing the carnage in the docking bay, the breached security sectors, the humans standing victorious in the very seat of Zorati power. Vasquez stepped forward, her voice calm and deadly. "You came to our world thinking we'd break. Now look where we are." The transmission would reach every corner of the Dominion, every subject species, every would-be conqueror. Carter leaned close to Zarek, her breath hot against the Archon's chitinous face. "Tell the galaxy what happens when you mess with Earth." Outside, the first human warships, salvaged Zorati vessels refitted with Terran weapons, dropped out of warp. Epilogue 3 standard cycles later. The bounty hunter adjusted his optics, studying the wanted hologram floating above the cantina table. The image showed for humans 2 males, 2 females, their faces marked with Dominion kill-on-sight sigils. The reward would set him up for life. His drinking companion, a grizzled Zenthian mercenary, took one look at the hologram and immediately stood to leave. "Where you going?" the bounty hunter asked. The Zenthian didn't pause. "To live." Alone at the table, the bounty hunter stared at the holograms a moment longer. Then he deleted the file and ordered another drink. Some paydays weren't worth it.